The air in Kumasi was buzzing with excitement for Amara's wedding. A celebration grander than the village had ever seen. Her friends, Nika and Fatu, arrived looking stunning in their vibrant kente and ankira. But something felt wrong. They had always craved the spotlight, and today, they were determined to steal it from the bride. Beneath the great acacia tree, as the drums echoed, Amara felt their jealousy, a silent weight in the warm air. Nika began flirting shamelessly with Amara's fiancé, Kofi, right in front of everyone, while Fatu spread whispers among the guests, painting Amara as a bride not ready for marriage. The joyful celebrations slowly curdled into a mess of side eyes and hushed gossip. When Amara discovered their betrayal, her heart broke. But as her grandmother always said, a woman who keeps her dignity keeps her power. And this was the day of Amara's awakening.
Amara felt utterly alone. The people she loved the most were now questioning her, and the wedding she had dreamed of was turning into a public spectacle of betrayal and doubt. But what hurt the most was not just the betrayal of her friends, it was the realization that her own family, who'd always believed in her, might not support her anymore. Amara now had to decide whether to continue with this marriage or fight back against the lies, but the pain of losing their trust was almost unbearable. The wedding ceremony reached its climax beneath the communal pavilion strung with palm leaves and golden lanterns. Amara stood before the officiating elder, her heart racing, ready to exchange vows with Kofi, the man she had chosen to walk beside her through life. She looked around at the familiar faces of her family and friends, expecting to feel the warmth and love she had imagined for years. But instead, she felt an eerie silence hanging in the air, heavier than the evening heat. Just as the elder asked if anyone had reason to object to the union, Nika made her move, with a loud, clear voice that cut through the silence like a machete. Nika stood up and declared, "Kofi does not deserve Amara. She has been hiding a secret from everyone, and I think it is time for the truth to come out." The pavilion went still, and all eyes turned to Amara, waiting for an explanation. Nika went on to expose Amara's private past, a time in her life when she had made mistakes and regretted them deeply. But it was not just a random secret, it was something Amara had kept hidden because she had never wanted her past to shadow her future. Nika, however, had used that secret as a weapon to tear apart everything Amara had worked so hard to build. Amara froze. She could not believe what was happening. Nika, her sister friend, had chosen this sacred moment to destroy her. Fatu, standing beside Nika, simply nodded, as though this were the greatest revelation the village ever witnessed. Amara's world crumbled, her eyes filled with tears as she realized that this was not just a betrayal. It was a calculated attack meant to humiliate her before everyone she loved. But as Amara stood there, she did something unexpected. She did not react in anger. Instead, she took a deep breath, drew on the strength of every woman who had come before her, and turned to face the crowd. "This is who I am," she said, her voice trembling but strong. "But it is not who I want to be anymore." As Amara stood there in shock, her heart racing, her fiancé, Kofi, seemed to crumble before her eyes. He had been caught in Nika's trap, and the truth came spilling out like water from a broken clay pot. His eyes shifted nervously as he finally admitted what Amara had been dreading. He had been seeing Nika behind her back. The pavilion gasped in unison as Amara's worst nightmare unfolded before the entire community. Kofi tried to explain himself, but no words could fix what had already been broken in front of the elders and the ancestors. He admitted that the tension between him and Amara had been growing, and Nika had used that vulnerability to manipulate him. She had planted doubts in his mind about his relationship with Amara, and over time he had given in to the temptation. Amara felt her stomach drop. All the love she had given him, all the trust, and the years they had spent building a future together felt like nothing in that moment. Kofi's confession only made her feel more alone beneath the watching sky. It was not just that Nika had betrayed her, it was that the man she had chosen to spend her life with had betrayed her too. Tears filled Amara's eyes as she looked at Kofi. But instead of falling apart, she stood taller. She felt the full weight of his betrayal, but she refused to let it define her. "I gave you everything," she said, her voice steady despite the pain. "And this is how you repay me." Kofi had no answer. He had never seen Amara like this before. She was no longer the quiet, trusting woman he had known. She was someone who had discovered the true meaning of strength, the kind her grandmothers had carried through far greater storms. Amara realized that the betrayal was not just about Kofi and Nika. It was about finding her own power, and she was not going to let them take that from her. Amara had been humiliated, betrayed, and broken. But in that moment, something inside her shifted like the turning of a season. She realized that no one, especially not Nika, Fatu, or Kofi, deserved the power to control her happiness any longer. It was time to take back everything that had been stolen from her. Her wedding day had been ruined, but she was not going to let her entire life be defined by this betrayal. Amara began plotting her reclamation not out of malice, but as a way to restore her own power and dignity. She started by cutting ties with Nika and Fatu. They had been her closest sister friends, but they no longer deserved that title. Amara made sure that their lies about her were exposed, starting with the people closest to them. She reached out to the women in the compound who had been swayed by their rumors, revealing the truth about what Nika and Fatu had been doing behind her back. Slowly, the people who once admired them began to turn away. Nika and Fatu tried to defend themselves, but the damage had already been done. Kofi, too, was not spared from Amara's quiet but firm response. She dissolved their engagement before the family elders, and with that, the trust she had once placed in him was officially broken. Amara made sure that the truth was known. There was no hiding from it, and she was not going to let him walk away without accountability. But Amara's reclamation did not stop there. She began to focus on herself. She poured her energy into rebuilding her life, forming new friendships with women of genuine character, and rediscovering her passions. With each Amara grew stronger. She knew that the best response to betrayal was not ruining others. It was flourishing despite them, as the baobab tree flourishes despite the storm. Amara had done everything she could to rebuild her life after the betrayal, but there was one last thing she needed to do: confront Nika, Fatu, and Kofi. It had been a few months since the wedding, and Amara had moved on, but the weight of their actions still lingered like smoke from a dying fire. It was time to face them, not to beg for closure, but to show them that she was no longer the woman they had tried to break. Amara called a meeting. The tension was palpable as they all gathered in the same room again. But this time, Amara was in control. She was no longer the victim. She was the one holding the power. She started by confronting Nika, who had once been her sister friend. "You tried to ruin my life out of jealousy," Amara said, her voice cold but steady. "You played with my happiness, and now you will answer for it." Nika tried to defend herself, but Amara was not listening. She turned to Fatu, who had also played her role in the lies and manipulation. "You are no different," Amara said, her eyes steady and unwavering. "You betrayed me just as surely as she did." Finally, Amara faced Kofi, her former fiancé. "You destroyed everything we built," she said, "but you also gave me the greatest gift of all, freedom. You showed me who I truly am, and for that, I thank you. Now, I am walking away, and I am never looking back." In that moment, Amara realized that this was the final chapter of that painful story, one where she had taken back control of her life and her happiness. She did not need revenge to feel satisfied. The satisfaction came from knowing she had grown stronger than any of them had imagined. After everything that had happened, Amara knew that her life was never going to be the same. The wedding she had once dreamed of was a distant memory, overshadowed by betrayal and heartbreak. But instead of letting that define her, she chose to start fresh. As her people said, "When the old hut burns down, build a new one with better walls." Amara began to focus on herself, her goals, her gifts, and her own happiness. She moved to a new city, surrounded herself with supportive and genuine women, and poured herself into her work and the causes she cared about. For the first time in a long while, Amara felt free. She did not need validation from others. She had learned to validate herself. Slowly but surely, she healed. Her confidence grew as she realized that her worth was not tied to a wedding ceremony, a man, or a friendship. Amara was more than that. She was a woman who had faced betrayal head-on in front of her entire community. And instead of being broken, she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more herself than ever before. One day, Amara met someone new, a kind, grounded man who saw her for who she truly was. But this time she was not rushing into anything. She had learned to take her time, to love herself first, and to make sure that the person she gave her heart to truly deserved it. Amara's new journey was just beginning. She had turned the pain of betrayal into the fuel that propelled her forward. No longer defined by what others had done to her, she was now writing her own story, and it was one filled with strength, independence, and the radiant promise of a bright African dawn. This was the beginning of a new chapter in Amara's life, one where she would never again let anyone take away her happiness.